Hello and welcome to round number 9 of the Apex Online Racing rFactor 2 Formula 1 World Championship. We're here for the British Grand Prix here at Silverstone. My name is Zack Jones, also known as the ZestyOranges, and I'm joined alongside me by Curtis Kenyon, also known as NinjaRider. Ninja, we're back here. Obviously, we had Le Mans last weekend, but we're back for Formula 1 here in the home of Grand Prix racing in Silverstone in the UK.
Yep, Dorchester never looked so good. Bunch of Formula 1 cars racing around Silverstone, of course. All of the usual suspects are here, and this one is shaping up to be an interesting one because the track is fairly slippery. There's a couple of very tricky corners that the drivers will need to negotiate, and qualifying should be one heck of a ride.
Yeah, high cornering speeds and high straight line speeds. It's really a test of how good you can, how well you can hold on to the car through the high speed corners of Stowe and Brooklands, and then even onto the Hanger Straights and through the iconic corners of Maggots and Beckett's. But we've got Kenyon White at the moment heading through Abbey, now down towards the loop section. Obviously a fairly new part of the circuit, obviously with the change coming in 2010 to the layout. But we can see Ken get a bit squirrely as he heads now onto the straight down towards Brooklyn.
Brooklyn's in my opinion, one of the trickiest corners here because you come in there so fast. You got to knock it all the way down to about third gear and then back down to second. It's a little bit disconcerting if you're not used to it. And then suddenly you're back up onto the gas for left field of Woodcote and into Copse.
Yeah, personally, I think that Copse is probably the hardest corner on the circuit because you go in there basically blind and hope that you can hold on and make sure you stay within track limits, and especially with this track version, you don't end up on the grass on the other end of the curb on the outside. But we can see Ken, he's negotiated his way through the high-speed complex of Maggots and Beckett's. He's now on the Hanger Straight approaching Stowe. We can see a KRT car ahead of him, which I believe was Evan Rice. Yeah, it'll be Evan who'll be starting a lap. He'll be looking not to get in the way of Keenan, and he does get out the way. He's going to come around the final corner now, and he's going to come towards the line. It's going to be a 1 minute 28.678. So that's a time that he'll be looking to improve on for sure. I think he can probably get maybe a second or so out of that. That'll be probably the optimal time.
Yeah, we were seeing 127s fairly easy actually in practice. So honestly, it really comes down to the tires here. With the track being so slippery, we're expecting the drivers to use hards this race. It'll be the first time that we've seen that in the season.
Yeah, it'll be a bit of a fallback tire, I think. I think Craig Bax was saying that most likely the optimal strategy will be a one-stop, starting on the soft tires, then moving to the mediums. But obviously, if you start toward maybe the back of the grid, you might be looking at potentially starting on the hards, then moving to the mediums, or vice versa, depending on what you want to do strategy-wise. But it's sort of, the tires are sort of the harder end of the spectrum of tires that we can bring to a Grand Prix. Obviously, the soft, the medium, and the hards. The only harder tire that you could bring is a super hard, which I'm doubtful that we'll see this season. But the softs are sort of the softs are the hardest qualifying tire that the drivers have to cope with. And in Azerbaijan, they were the far from ideal race tire. Even though the drivers expected them to work very, very well, it sort of didn't prove to be so. So we'll see as Craig Basson now winding his way onto the main straight, starting another qualifying lap. He set a time that was about just under 0.03 of a second faster than Kenyon White's time, so he's in the 1 minute 28.6 as well. So we now head into the arena section, the loop section. It's sort of open to interpretation as to what you want to call it, but he's coming up to a bit of traffic now, which should get out the way. Dominic Lambrick's there on the inside. Now, activating DRS, the car will be building up to well over 310 kilometers an hour, possibly 320, and he does get that into Brooklyn. Got to hold on for dear life there as he now heads into Luffield, getting a bit over the curb there, making sure that keep the car under wraps as he now heads up to Woodcote and now approaches Copse. We'll see if what gear will hold this in. It's in 7th, and he's going to be holding on for dear life onto the curb there on the outside. But he's managed to keep it under control as he now heads into Maggots, and then quickly heads into Beckett's, and now into Club. And then he'll be activating DRS again as he heads now onto the hangar straight under the hype banner. And we'll be approaching Stowe. We can see there Sabre car getting out the way, but most likely it'll be the 46 of Sam Carpenter. Craig going to be careful not to extend on the exit of Stowe, heading now into the final complex of corners, into Vale. Now you'll see as he goes through the final corner and he's going to come towards the line, and it's going to be, well, it wasn't, it was, I don't think that was an improvement, was it? It was...
No, it really wasn't.
It was about less than a tenth of a second, but Kenyon White's actually gone, Sam Carpenter, my apologies, and the other Sabre's actually gone faster by about half a tenth of a second, so very, very close here in the opening qualifying session for this Grand Prix weekend. We've got just under 4.5 minutes left in the session. We've got Sam Carpenter, the current top of the timesheets, as he heads now, I believe, on a qualifying lap. Looks to be, let's see how much... I know it looks to be a bit of a back-off lap. Yeah, it is. He's on an out lap at the moment. Geordie's Wires popped in a time that is 1,000th slower than Craig. So a very good showing there.
Wow.
From the VD Sport Car of Geordie's Wires. But we've got, I believe, Evan Rice, 7th place, is currently on a lap. Actually, no, my apologies. We'll go with Kenyon White. Kenyon White's actually gone purple in the first sector. He's up by about a quarter of a tenth of a second. So incredibly fine margins as he heads now onto the hangar straight. He's down though by half a second through that middle sector by looking at the overlay. Heads into Stowe. He's got to be careful not to extend, and he had to lift off there to make sure that the car could get around the corner legally. Now into the final complex of corners. Doesn't want to hit the curb on the inside. He's now going to squirt the throttle, and he's going to run through the final corner and towards the line. And it's
absolutely nailed it.
0.4 of a second improvement, and he puts himself well and truly ahead of his teammate.
Absolutely nailed it. Goes purple all over the place, except for the last sector. A 128.1 isn't the fastest that we've seen this weekend, but dang, I mean, he nailed that last corner. Absolutely perfect. Didn't hit that inside sleeping policeman that wraps around the inside of the curb there, and just floored it. Oh my God, that was amazing. We've seen some massive improvement from Kenyon White as of late, and especially at Le Mans. He got a lot of wheel time in, and it's really starting to show itself here in this qualifying session.
Yeah, we were unfortunately for Kenyon, it's sort of a tale of two drivers really when it comes to Kenyon White's driving. Qualifying, he can really drive his natural game, I guess, if you want to compare it to other sports. He can really drive how he wants to drive because you're not going to carry through this tyre wear into the following sessions, and so he can really I guess go for it and use these tires pretty much to the canvas if he really wants to, and sometimes he has a red hot go at taking them to the canvas with the amount of lock that he puts into the car. We spoke about this I think all the way back in Azerbaijan with Evan Rice about how the amount of input that you put into the wheel and how much that would wear the tire and heat up the tire, which then degrades the tire and wears it. So Kenyon, in qualifying, he can do that because he's only doing one lap at a time, so he can really go for it, and it won't have an ongoing effect to the car. But when it comes to a race, you start doing that, you're going to be wearing your tyres a lot faster, and that's going to result in you losing time because you're going to be in the pit lane a lot more than your competitors. So he's got to sort of drive in two different ways when it comes to this car, especially with just the fragile nature of these tyres. Obviously, he can sort of really go for it in qualifying. He can get a great grid position, but then when it comes to the actual race, he's got to be quite cautious with how he approaches racing. But Craig Baxter is going to be coming through the couple of final corners now. He's going to be starting a qualifying lap to see if he can put himself higher than his current third position. But that is good enough to get him into Q2. But let's see if Craig can really flex his muscles here in the Defiance car. Number 9 heading now down towards Abbey for a qualifying lap. Full beans as he heads now down into the arena section. A bit of a large lock up there. Huge lock up on the inside front right. But he manages to keep the car under control now as he heads through the loop, and he's going to be winding the car up now onto the back straight, activating DRS as he passes the line, and it's now being activated as he builds up now to over 320 kilometers an hour in qualifying boost into Brooklands. got to make sure the car holds on. He doesn't wash out wide, and he doesn't do so into Luffield now. He's got to make sure that he can just have the patience, and the car will come out on the right part of the circuit. Now through Woodcote onto the old main straight, heading now down towards Cops. Now, obviously, he's got to just hold on and hope that he doesn't go across the curb, but he does. He hits the inside grass on the inside of Cops, and that unsettled the car and spun him right round. But the checker flag is out. Sam Carpenter, Philip Kraus in 5th place at the moment, has gone green in the first sector. He's up by about 2.5 tenths of a second. Geordie's Wires, though, puts himself in 2nd place. Tina Nakarainen immediately beats him, puts himself into 2nd place. So Craig Baxter being demoted now down to 5th. If there's a lot of improvements, Craig Baxter he could be at risk of being knocked out here of Q1. But I think there'll be something serious will have to go wrong for that to happen. But we shall see. Philip Kraus down by now 2.5 tenths as he heads now into Stowe. We'll see if he can pull out a fantastic final sector. Now, braking heavily, got to make sure you don't lock the inside front, and the car gets a bit wild there. But we shall see what he can do. Now he's going to be coming through the final corner, towards the line, and what's it going to be for Philip Kraus? It's going to be 2nd place. A purple final sector for Philip Kraus puts him it's about 3 hundredths of a second behind Kenyon White, who went purple. So it's Kenyon White who goes ahead of Philip Kraus, followed by Sam Carpenter, Tino Nalkarainen in 4th place ahead of Geordie's Wires. Craig Baxter comes through for 6th place ahead of Kieran Chadwick, Scott Davison in 8th place, Evan Rice in 9th, and Noah Chiller in 10th place. I don't believe his teammate Chukwuemeka Lalu is going to improve, nor will David Puskovsky. So it looks like Chiller is through.
Oh, wait a minute. As you say that, Puskovsky moves into 10th place, knocking down Noah Chilla. And a couple of other notables. Kieran Chadwick landed in 7th place, and he's 2nd in the points and has had some pretty good showings. Except for the last round, he ended up 7th overall at the end of the race.
Yeah, started at the back of the grid. It was a tough race for him.
He had a real tough race and managed to 7th. So he's going to be looking to improve here, and he'll have a chance in Q2, which we'll be moving into, well, right now.
Yeah, the final 7-minute qualifying session that will determine the top 10 for the race. 36 laps of the Silverstone circuit the drivers will have ahead of them. It'll be a very, very intense race because the fuel is incredibly close, because the circuits we've been going to in the past few rounds, the fuel has also been critical, but you could sit in the slipstream of the driver ahead of you and save fuel, whereas at Silverstone, there aren't any huge, long straights that you can be in the slipstream when you go onto those straights. For instance, the Hangar Straight, you come out of Maggots and Beckett's. You can't follow someone through Maggots and Beckett's in these cars and then be in the slipstream to save fuel. So you're going to have to actually save fuel yourself, and it's incredibly difficult to do because you've got to sort of the really fine line of saving fuel but losing time. You've got to sort of juggle it and sort of minimize any lost time, and drivers that'll be, especially in the lead of the race, will have to be managing that as well. But we've got
you kind of have to learn how to you really have to short shift here on the slowdown areas. You also need to roll these corners a little bit different. Now granted, arena, the club section, Luffield, Brooklands, that area, you can roll those corners fairly well if you brake earlier than you normally would. But I mean, we're talking really close. It's not going to be much. So I have a feeling we're going to see some drivers backing off a little bit on the long straights and just not hitting that top speed that they normally would. It wouldn't surprise me to see some people just kind of peg it at 295 and call it good there for a little while, especially in the middle of the race when you're trying to save the fuel for the end.
Yeah, we've got Craig Baxter now on the main straight heading down towards Abbey, the first one to start a qualifying lap here in Q2. Flat through Abbey, the new generation of cars really allow for you to really attack Abbey. A massive inside front right lock from Craig as he heads now into the arena section through 4 and now into turn 5. Manages to keep the car under control though. A fairly scruffy, I'm going to be honest, first sector from Craig Baxter, but it will be purple as it will be the first sector one time set. But we'll see how it stands against the other 9 drivers as he heads now into Luffield, out of Luffield now, towards Woodcote. Really, Woodcote flat out, but obviously the new generation of cars really helping that. Copse was potentially going to be flat for some of the drivers, but it really is a small lift there for Craig Baxter as he heads now down towards Maggots and Beckett's, the most iconic set of corners in Formula One. The Maggots now into Beckett's. Got to make sure he keeps the car under control, and now through Chapel and onto the hangar straight. You'll be activating DRS, building up to well over 320 kilometers an hour. We can see that 324 as he heads now into Stowe. 325, we're hearing the official reading. Oh, big slide there through on the exit of Stowe. That'll really compromise his final sector as he heads now towards Vale, through Vale, now into Club. He's going to be seeing if he can minimize the run, and he's going to come across the line to do a 1 minute 27.994, slides himself into the 1 minute 27s just slightly as Kieran Chadwick puts in a time 0.7 of a second slower, as we're going to see. Sam Carpenter goes ahead of Craig Baxter by 1/10 of a second. Kenyon White has gone purple in the first sector as he heads now down towards Maggots and Beckett's on the inside curb there up on the sausage as he heads towards Maggots. That was very, very audacious from Kenyon White. We can see that it really has compromised his run through the rest of the lap. Scott Davison puts himself in third. Tino Nelkarainen in fourth. Dave Peskowski puts himself into fourth place ahead of Nelkarainen and Zwires. Chadwick in seventh. And Evan Rice puts himself into eighth, as I was just about to say, 1.7 seconds off the pace. So Evan Rice will be looking to set another time. White and Kraus yet to set a time in this session. We can see we've got Kieran Chadwick currently going through Luffield. Not on a lap at the moment. He'll be just preparing himself for an out lap, preparing for another go here. We've got 3 minutes left in the session. So we shall see as he heads into Copse. We'll see if there's any other drivers that are actually on laps at the moment, potentially having a go. We've got Craig Baxter now going through Chapel and onto the hangar straight. He'll be the first one to start his final qualifying lap. He is leaving himself with enough time that if he does make a mistake in the early part of the lap, that he can escape and then have another one last go with a couple of seconds left on the board before he crosses the line. So he's done this quite a few times in qualifying.
No, he does it every race.
He sort of gives himself an opportunity to have 2 laps if he needs to, and it's always a good thing to do because you don't want to put yourself under that much pressure as he heads now down towards Abbey. We'll be seeing if Craig Baxter can put himself on pole position here for the British Grand Prix through Abbey, flat out, now into the arena section. Another big front right, and he backs it up. And there was the mistake we were talking about. Does allow him to have another lap, but we shall see. His teammate, Scott Davison, is now heading now into Brooklands. Who will be the first one?
Scott Davison is on a qualifying lap. So he should have been going full bore, but it looks like he might be backing off for this one.
He's backing off. He will be able to get round and start a lap, but it'll be it's not a lap from him as of yet. There's no other drivers that are setting qualifying time. It's sort of we're in that lull. Evan Rice though is on the main straight, heading towards Abbey. 8th place, Evan Rice into Abbey for the final time in this qualifying session. This will be his final lap as we head now into the arena section. A lot of input there from Evan Rice, but as we said, it's qualifying. The tyres can be worn if they need to. The tyre compound they set their fastest lap time will be carried over, but not the wear. So at the moment, we've got the majority of the drivers setting their time on the soft compound tyre, the softest we've got here this weekend, and they'll be most likely starting the race on that before moving to probably a set of mediums and taking them to the end of the race. But Evan Rice goes green in the first sector, 10th up on himself, which is good to see as he heads now through Woodcote and onto the old main straight towards Copse. To make sure he keeps the car on the circuit, doesn't. A lot of tyre smoke there as he heads down now towards Maggots and into Beckett's. The fastest compact of corners on the circuit. You've got to make sure he keeps the car on the circuit through the snake of tarmac, through Chapel now onto the hangar straight, under the height banner, activating DRS, building up to 320 or so kilometers an hour into Stowe.
Oh,
keep it on the circuit, Evan. Oh, big snap, and he backs out.
Oh, he backs out. That's too bad. He was good. He technically had 2 wheels on the circuit at the time. He could have kept going, but he must have felt with all of that tire smoke and everything going on, he just wanted to back out and say, you know what? All right, that's it. I'm going to call it at 8th.
Craig Baxter has gone purple through the first sector. Craig Baxter in second place has gone purple by almost half a tenth of a second as he heads now through Luffield and up towards Woodcote. Craig Baxter currently sitting in second place behind Sam Carpenter. Sam trying to take his second pole position of the season to join his Spanish pole position from earlier in the season. Through Copse, Craig looking very settled. The setup is working well now as he heads down towards Intermaggot. Now into Beckett to make sure he can keep the car within the confines of the circuit through Chapel. Now activating there. He's down by a tenth and a half, but he will gain this in the final sector. So we shall see what Craig Baxter can do. Sam Carpenter is also on a lap, but he's behind Craig. So Craig's going to be the first one out of the two to cross the line. Brzkowski's also on a lap. So is Chadwick, White, and Kraus. Craig Baxter, though, into Vale. Now into Club, around the final corner. What's it going to be for Baxter? It's going to be pole position by 0.2 of a second. Let's see where Sam Carpenter is. And he comes into the pit lane, does Carpenter. So Craig Baxter looks to be on pole position here for the British Grand Prix ahead of Sam Carpenter. Geordie Zwires in third place for VD Sport. A fantastic result. We'll see where Brzkowski and White, though, may jumble up the order.
Oh, White!
Kean White, there we go, bangs in a second place lap time, a tenth and a quarter behind Craig Baxter. So it's Baxter ahead of White, ahead of Carpenter, ahead of Zwires. Scott Davison sits in fifth place, but ahead of Philip Kraus and Kieran Chadwick. Dave Brzkowski in eighth place, ahead of Tino Nelkurainen in ninth place, with Evan Rice rounding out the top 10. So a fairly interesting qualifying session. Really impressive from Geordie Zwires.
Extremely impressive from Geordie Zwires. And we should also know that Chadwick was also in the top 5 there for a little bit until the very end when Davison and Kraus overtake those two positions, knocking him down to 7th.
Davison and Kraus, like we said,
all
the
over the
exact
place.
same.
We were not expecting Kean White to be up in second place, and then Geordie Zwires out in fourth, out of nowhere. He's just found all this speed. It must just be a circuit that really complements his driving style. But I mean, kudos to everybody. A lot of clean laps and only a couple of mistakes here and there. Well done to everybody. But we're going to move into warm up here, and I have a feeling this might actually be a much more interesting race than everybody thought.
It's got the makings to be a fantastic race. Craig Baxter, the championship leader, will be starting alongside Kean White. Man, that's sort of an outside chance for the championship as we head into round 9 of the season. I believe there's 16 rounds in this season. So sort of he's got to really do something very impressive if he wants to win this championship, does Kean White. But we'll have a look at the Drivers' Championship standings if we can. We can see that it'll be Craig Baxter leading the way with 159 points ahead of Kieran Chadwick, who sits with 134 points for KRT. Sam Carpenter is in third place, 117 points. So there's a bit of a split there with the top 3. Obviously, the top 3 have taken part in, I believe, every single race this season. So if you turn up and you've got a decent amount of pace, you probably will be scoring points in every single race, which really does help your sort of championship assault, I guess, if you want to be there. Obviously, Philip Kraus sits in fourth place, 95 points, didn't take part in the opening round in Australia, but has now since bounced back, took a win in Turkey a couple of rounds ago for Zesty Racing, sits there with 95 points, well ahead of Kean White for the other Sabre car, who's sitting there with 54 points. So starting second, he could add a haul of points to his tally if he can hold on or even improve on that position throughout the next 36 laps of the Silverstone circuit.
Yeah, Kean White actually has 2 DNFs, round 3 and round 4. So he's had a little bit of a rough season. Decent showings all around, 3-4 top 5s I can see here. So it's not like he doesn't have the pace, and he has been improving quite a bit, especially just in his driving style in general. So he'll be looking, I think he'll be looking good. Maybe a possible top 3. Could we see a podium from Kean today?
Well, I was going to say so, but I've actually just been informed that Kean does have a 5-place grid penalty due to an accumulation of penalty points.
The little penalty.
Kean had 1 penalty point prior to the last race in Austria, but due to that massive incident involving himself and Evan Rice, he picked up an additional 2 penalty points, which if you get 3 penalty points, you end up with a 5-place grid penalty. And unfortunately, he'll drop himself from 2nd down to 7th on the grid. So he's got a bit of work to do if he wants to try and get back on the podium or get back up to the place that he was. But who knows? He that's a very impressive time, and he looked very, very good in comparison to his teammates so far this weekend. So we shall see if he can improve. But he's got to just keep a calm head and not take any of the drivers out, I guess, when he goes to have a go at them, I guess. But looking behind it, his rival Evan Rice sits in 6th place for KRT with 42 points, ahead of Tino Nelka-Rainen, who's in 7th place at the moment for ACR Zack Speed. Hasn't taken part in the last couple of races, has Tino, so he'll be looking to build on his points tally in this race. Scott Davison, also a driver that didn't take part last time out in Austria, was holidaying in New York City, but he's sitting with 28 points for Defiance Racing. After a very, very difficult and very unlucky start to the season, he really has anchored himself in the past few rounds and has looked very, very good indeed. He sits himself ahead of Tommy Ilatalo with 26 points for Royal Blue Racing. No Royal Blue cars taking part in today's British Grand Prix, so they're maybe they're still celebrating after their 1-2 in qualifying last time out in Austria, but who knows? They're not here, but they may be back for the next round. But that means that Jacob Reed was able to take advantage of a fantastic race last time out in Austria, and he sits in 10th place for Stupid Motorsports with 20 points. So really has come out of nowhere and has looked quite good in the last couple of races as well.
Yeah, he's starting 17th today, so he'll have a bit of a day ahead of him trying to get some points on the board. But Jacob Reed showing that he can hang. I mean, the 3 races that he's finished the last 3 races, finished in the top 10. So he's there. Definitely deserves to be where he's at right now. Callum Roberts sitting in 11th in the points. Had a bit of a rough go lately. Been out of the top 10. A couple of DNFs here and there. I don't think he's racing today either. So, yeah, not going to be improving today. Ross Woodford, of course, 12th place. Brandon O'Henlon, 13th. Jordy Zwire sitting in 14th. A lot of races that he has not shown up to. So I honestly think he's going to be the wild card today.
A good opportunity to get a lot of points for VD Sport. A new team on the grid. He moved from Drillers to VD, and I don't think VD have got any points yet in this season. So it's a good opportunity to score a whole bag of points for the team. Ruben van den Hudding, his teammate, is racing today. I believe in 15th place. He'll be starting. But we shall see how VD go. But moving to the Constructors' Championship, it's a bit closer. So we can see Defiance Racing leading the way with 187 points. They are 11 points ahead of KRT, who sit there with 176 points in 2nd place. And they're only 5 points ahead of Sabre Racing, who sit with 171 points. And they are well and truly ahead of Zesty Racing, who have only, thus far, this season, have only scored points with one car, with Philip Kraus scoring all 95 points for Zesty Racing. They've got a new driver in the form of Nick Brackey, number 98. He's taken over from Dano Brantham and is going to be racing for us for the rest of the season, and we're very excited. He'll be starting, I think, around the 13th mark, so free choice of tyres for Nick. He'll be able to potentially move forward in the race. And we're ahead of ACR Zack Speed, who sit with 48 points, only 3, though, ahead of Royal Blue, who sit in 6th place. Stupid Motorsports, they've really done well in the past few races to sort of really come out of nowhere. Obviously, with Dionysius Farios and Jacob Reed spearheading that attack. They sit with 21 points ahead of Visceral Sim Racing, with Jukapeka Lalu and Noah Chilla in 8th place. Drillers Motorsport, the Dutch team, sitting 1 point behind in 9th place with 16 points. And then a further 2 points behind them is S2 Racing with Dominic Lambrix and I believe, I can't remember the second driver. O'Henlon, that's right. He's not racing today.
No, he's not. Lambrix is here, though, so he'll be flying the colors for S2 and looking for, I think he's just looking for as much points as he can get. Brandon, if I remember right, he raced at Le Mans and had a little bit of a rough day there.
Oh, so, he's not the only one. He wasn't the only one.
Really, a lot of people did, let's face it. Uh,
Oh,
so Brandon taking the week off. I say well earned. Of course, he is
well,
German,
he was stewing.
so he
Once
might
he
be a
retired,
little bit interested in the World Cup.
once he retired from the race, he actually then did live stewarding for about 14 hours. So he fair bit of dedication there from Henlin, but he's having the week off. Yeah, but I actually just saw that Tommy Ilatalo has joined the server and will be starting at the back of the grid. So Royal Blue have got a car in this race. They might be looking to potentially pass ACR Zack Speed for 5th place in the championship if they can outscore the team by 3 or more points. But we shall see.
We shall see indeed. Just about 2 minutes left before the start of the race. Silverstone, one of those very technical but extremely quick tracks that really challenge the driver to get the setup just right. The setup is so important here. You have to have a ton of mechanical grip. You can rely on the arrow in certain areas. Maggots, Beckett's come to mind immediately. But corners like Stowe, Luffield, extremely important. Cops, of course,
Yep.
Abbey. You have to go as flat out as possible through those 2 corners. So the arrow, very important there. But the setup, the mechanical grip, if it's not there and you make one slight error, you're off the track in really any of these corners except for the slow ones like Arena, into Brooklands, maybe even Woodcote, things like that. You mentioned the lack of slipstream ability here at Silverstone. And I mean, it's dead on. It's not like, sure, maybe a lot of people are endurance racers here, and with multiple cars on the track, you can kind of joggle the drafting a little bit, but here, not really. Especially with these particular cars, there's just so much aero wash coming off the back that you don't want to be behind someone through Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel, through Cops, through Abbey, even into Stowe. You want as much aero as you can because Stowe has that off camber exit that is so tricky, and with the rubber not really going down well right now, and the near 30 degrees Celsius track temperature, we're talking some slippery track, and these drivers are going to be challenged to actually save the rear tires, in my opinion, especially coming out of these very slow corners.
Yeah, I do feel as though that obviously looking at Formula One as well, there are quite a few sort of action zones, I guess, around the circuit.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, you look at Abbey, a corner where people think that they can go side by side into it, and it obviously ends up ending very poorly. The same with Maggots and Beckett's. Obviously, we saw the 2 Toro cars colliding in the opening lap of last year's British Grand Prix, taking both of them out in the process. It didn't work out, and I feel as though that some people may be brave enough to try that, but we shall see. And obviously, Cops as well, a corner where if you don't realise that someone's on your inside, you can get turned around, and depending on how you bounce around on this track, you could end up upside down.
Saw that at VEC a few times. They put a bunch of sleeping policemen out on the outside of Cops, and in practice, my own teammate ended up literally in the fence, upside down. We have no idea how he did it. He has no idea how it happened. Here we don't have that. There is actual runoff, but honestly, you go off at Cops, you're in the wall. You're done.
The grass won't help. Yeah. It will turn you around. But we're about to go to the race. So we're going to wait for the formation lap.
Looks like there might be a little bit of a test going on. Not quite sure what is happening. But yeah, we're just waiting for the server to turn over into race mode, as everybody needs to escape and get back into their garages. Retirements? Predictions? Anything, Zach? I mean, I know there's a lot of chatter amongst the drivers as of late. The different tires, we're actually going to see some decent strategy here, tire strategy. But really, one stop, I should say, with 36 laps around this track. I honestly think that tire dag is going to come into play, as everybody's just going to want to stay out of the pits no matter what.
Yeah, I think it'll just be down to if you are in the slipstream, the dirty air of someone, that if your tyres do degrade, um, that bit more in comparison to other people. So we'll see. If Craig Baxter can keep his nose clean and get into the lead of the race, let's say onto the main straight, it should be fine, I think.
Timer has gone off. We're about to start the race.
Welcome to round number 9 here of the Apex Online Racing rFactor 2 Formula 1 World Championship. We're here at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. We're currently on the formation lap. We've got Craig Baxter on pole position ahead of Sam Carpenter. Craig's picked up another pole position to add to his collection, and it was a fantastic lap to put himself on the pole for what will be a fantastic race. We've got Sam Carpenter, obviously, in second place, ahead of Geordie's Wires for VD Sport, a fantastic lap in Q2 for him to put himself onto the second row of the grid, ahead of Craig's teammate Scott Davison, who is in fourth place, and he's followed by the first of the Zesty Racing cars, and that is Philip Kraus.
Kieran Chadwick, second in points, starting sixth place, the former leader until Craig Baxter took over for him, in points, I should say. Kean White, seventh. He's looking to improve indeed. He's showing a lot of speed here. We'll see what he can do. David Peshkovsky sitting eighth. We have been impressed by him in the past. This could be another race to watch out for him, as he is in the top 10 again. Tino Naukarainen. God, I love that car. Fantastic job on the livery there. But ninth place for him, and Evan Rice sitting in 10th place for the second KRT.
Yep, he's ahead of Noah Chile for the Visual Sim Racing car, sitting in 11th place. He is ahead of Jukka Pekalalu in his teammate, who's in 12th place, and Nick Brackey, the other Zesty Racing car, in 13th, ahead of Jeff Jacobs for the Core Racing team in 14th, with Ruben van den Hudding sitting in 15th place.
You know, my green car senses are tingling. That Ruben's car, fantastic.
It is a placeholder. It is a placeholder. Don't get too excited.
I don't care. Can you just keep it? It's so good. It's so green. I love it. 16th, Dominic Lambrex. Not his strongest track. He'll be possibly struggling a little bit. 17th, Jacob Reed, who has not come out of the garage yet. I believe he needs to start on the pit lane, so he's not even come out yet. And actually rocking the hards, so we'll see what he does. And Tommy L'Italo came in late, but Royal Blue is here. They will be contending, so he's going to start at the back of the grid. Unfortunate for him, but he'll be here, and he'll see what he can do. He's got 8 places to make up before he gets into the points. Actually, technically 7, as he will take over Jacob Reed here as they move on to the grid. Zach,
yes.
This one's going to be wild, man.
It's going to be wild. I'm very, very excited. The top 10 all starting, I believe, on the soft compound tyres. So the softest that they will have here this weekend. So maximum grip into the Abbey corner for the first time, but they're the last cars lining up on the grid. We shall wait for the 5 red lights as we now build towards the 5 red lights. It's lights out, and away we go here at Silverstone. It's a fantastic start there, I believe, by Craig Baxter. He's going to be leading now into Abbey for the first time. He's going to lead over by Sam Carpenter. Geordie's Wires holds on to 3rd place, but I believe Philip Kraus is going to be dicing with the Defiance car behind. So we can see now, Philip Kraus is going to hold on the inside, so it's going to be Philip Kraus who moves himself up ahead of the Defiance of Scott Davison, puts himself in 4th place. Kenyon White, they're looking to make up a few places. Kenyon White's going to be going in the slipstream now of Scott Davison as we head down to Brooklands for the first time, but it's Craig Baxter who leads ahead of Sam Carpenter, Geordie's Wires, Philip Kraus, and Scott Davison rounding out the top 5. As Scott goes wide through Luffield, this could invite Kenyon White to go up on the inside if he dares. It's very, very close here. We can actually see a Kenyon White move into Cops here in a moment. He's in the slipstream and he is gaining rapidly. Is he on Scott Davison? But he thinks better of it. That is a very smart move there from the young Sabre driver.
Getting real dicey already. Somebody already off the track. Got a little bit messed up there through Cops, but now through Maggots and Baxits. I'm actually just watching Sam Carpenter right now as Craig Baxter's already running away with it, nearly a second ahead as they move out of Sector 2. Jordy's Wires holding strong in third place. Fantastic job by him so far. And Kraus bringing up fourth place now here, the Zesty Oranges car.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful car. It's a vibrant and beautiful car.
I'm gonna laugh every single time I'm gonna laugh at it.
It's a beautiful car, but Craig Baxter leads.
Oh, there's a spin in the back. Noah Chilla spun out of, I believe, yeah, that was the last corner there, coming out of club and onto the front straight. Oh, no, he's going to come in front. He's got no front wing. Got to get back to the pits quickly. We'll see what he can do. Of course, I'll keep an eye on that for you guys.
Dominic Lambrix also spun out behind him through the final corner. He's sitting in 18th place and last at the moment as he goes across the line. But unfortunately, Noah Chilla has lost his front wing at possibly the worst place on the entire circuit, just after the pit lane entry. So he's got to do an entire lap now. He still is ahead of Dominic Lambrix, but he's got to do an entire lap now without a front wing. And he's got to try and do something different here with his strategy. But we'll go back up towards the front. Craig Baxter heading through Cops, leading the way here on lap 2 of the Grand Prix. Still ahead of Sam Carpenter and Geordie's Wires. Geordie might be looking to potentially start attacking Sam Carpenter and move himself up into second and really settle himself up in the in second place, would be a fantastic result if he can get himself up there. He's sort of within striking distance, you would think. And there's a bit of a gap growing between Philip Kraus and Scott Davidson. So we shall see how that will grow over time.
The one that this whole thing is hurting right now is Kean White. He showed so much speed in practice, so much speed in qualifying, and he's being held up here by Scott Davison. Now, of course, this is for position. There's no reason to fret about it, but we have to keep an eye on Kean. He's going to want to make this pass as quickly as possible and try to catch up to the gearbox of Kraus.
So you can see now he's heading into the arena section. Scott Davison is sort of really being the cork in the bottle here for Kean White. If he can get out the way, Kean can start to move forward in this race, but we shall see. But Craig Baxter starting to gap Sam Carpenter a little bit. I can tell you what though, Philip Kraus really starting to look like he's closing up massively on Geordie's Wires, looking to get that third place, and so is Kean White on Scott Davidson. Let's see if we can go on board with the Sabre of Kean White. He was looking really good on the opening lap here as he was in the slipstream of Scott Davidson heading up towards Cops. Wasn't wanting to make a move into Cops on the opening lap, but he might be willing to a couple of laps later. He's now in the slipstream heading down towards Maggots and Beggars. Not a typical overtaking spot on the circuit, but who knows, a Kean White Banzai move might do something absolutely incredible. But we can see heading now towards Chapel. He's not close enough, but the good thing is that Scott is in DRS range, so that means that Kean's now going to be able to close up massively. He's going to go down on the inside into Stowe. He's able to make that move stick, but geez, it was very audacious there. But we can see Sam Carpenter starting to close up the field ahead of as well. We've got Geordie's Wires sort of being held up there and backed up into Philip Kraus as a result. So Sam sort of being the cork on the bottle for the battle for second place as well. They might be able to start attacking Craig Baxter if Sam can get out of the way, if they can clear him swiftly. But we shall see as they head now into the arena section. Not a typical place you would expect some overtaking. Maybe a late braking maneuver, but maybe something with DRS into Brooklands. We saw Mark Webber overtake Fernando Alonso in 2012 for the race win. You'll see that both the cars, both Geordie and Philip, with DRS, Sam Carpenter without, as he is with over a second behind Craig Baxter now, as Craig starts to extend his gap. It sits at 1.4 seconds on lap 4 of 36 here at Silverstone.
And Craig is going to want to keep his tires as cold as possible. He's going to manage that gap. I don't think he's really going to open it up too much. Maybe open it up to 2 seconds just for some safety. But Sam Carpenter is the one being pushed right now. As Geordie, I've heard through the pipeline that he is feeling extremely confident and is going to put on a show today. He is doing just that, sitting third place, feeling extremely confident and just sticking to Sam Carpenter right now.
He's looking good, he's Geordie's Wires, obviously in the temporary green car, but a green car nonetheless.
Just keep it. It's so
good. we shall see, but he is hunting at the moment, hunting Sam Carpenter. He's really starting to put the pressure on. Sam obviously never really raced Geordie's Wires, especially in this league. As we it's been a shock, but we can see in the background there, Scott Davidson's gone massively wide through the final corner, which means that Kenyon White has closed up massively as they head through Abbey. Dirty air galore for the three following. Let's see if Kenyon White is able to make a move here on Scott Davidson, who seems to be struggling here in the early stages of this British Grand Prix. Be able to see a bit of a wide line there from Scott Davidson, but gives him a good exit onto the back straight.
I wonder if Davidson has already heated up his tires. These tires are so close. Kenyon White to the inside here through Brooklands, heading into the left field section. He will take over the position as Scott Davidson now under attack from Kieran Chadwick. Kieran on the inside through Woodcote. Can he do it?
Slipstream's going to help him here up towards Cops. Will Kieran Chadwick be close enough? He signals that he wants to make a move into Cops, but Scott does not allow him to do so. So they're going to be going single file into Maggots and Beckett's, but it's actually Kenyon White now up into 5th place in this race as Dominic Lambrix comes to the pits from 18th place. So really struggling as the leading pack will be coming up to lap him here on lap 5 of the Grand Prix. We can see there's sort of a little battle pack. The 2nd, 3rd and 4th are close, and then 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th also pretty close as well. As we can see, Kieran Chadwick really signaling he wants to make a move here on Scott Davidson, but he wants to make a clean back. And that's a big moment. Big slide and a spin round there for Kieran Chadwick, 2nd place man in the standings, and he's had a huge moment. He'll most likely be pitting, you'd imagine, 4 flat spots to those tyres, but we shall see if he can continue on. Drops to 11th place in the race. We'll see if he goes on or if he's going to pull into the pit lane. I think he is continuing on, but that now promotes Nag Quinonan up to 7th place in the race. Evan Rice also gets himself up into 8th, and Lalu puts himself into the points for the first time this race, with Kieran Chadwick now sitting in 11th place as Yelatalo pits as well, who started on the hard, so not very good tire life there from Yelatalo.
So Tino was actually just following Scott Davidson and Kieran Chadwick through Stowe, and when they both ran wide, Nakarainen found himself catching him extremely quickly, and I think that Chadwick thought he had the room, so he cut down right back onto the racing line, and Nakarainen was already there.
I'll tell you what, though.
Unfortunately,
Geordie's Wires. He's in 3rd place. He's within 0.2 of a second of Sam Carpenter as they head onto the hangar straight. This is incredibly close racing between the two of them. I'm expecting Geordie to potentially make a move. He actually might have a go here into Stowe. He's going to look to the inside. Will Geordie's Wires be able to make it stick? Sam Carpenter shuts the door, and there's no move on the car.
Coming out of Kraus, the American on the inside of Wires now. Oh, it's so tight through here.
They're going to go side by side now through Club, and it's going to be Geordie's Wires who manages to hold off the attack from the American. He's now got to make sure he can catch back up to Sam Carpenter, as they've lost a bit of time, about 6 or so tenths of a second to the Brit in the Sabre, as Jacob Reed comes into the pit lane as well, which promotes Kieran Chadwick is now up to 10th place in the race. We can see Sam Carpenter, I think, is really starting to struggle. He's sort of, maybe he's working on fuel, as Craig Baxter, the leader of the race, is also doing so, but it seems as though that Geordie's Wires really is looking good in this race. Just needs to keep his composure and get past this this Sabre car in due course. Just have a bit of patience and get past. But we shall see. He has closed up a little bit here through to this opening first sector. He's closed up by 1/10 of a second on Sam Carpenter, but Sam on soft tyres as well on lap 7 of the Grand Prix. Maybe you'd be thinking they might come in maybe lap 11 or so, 4 tyres.
Yeah, that's right about what I was thinking. Probably take on some mediums. We should mention that Philip Kraus actually gone purple in this race. 132.3 is the current fastest. 0.32, I should say, is the current fastest lap. So Kraus looking to advance. He's on the march. He's definitely feeling it. It's good to see the ZestyOranges car up in the top 5 for sure.
Speaking of marching, Tino Nalkarainen has marched himself ahead of Scott Davison up into 6th place in this race for ACR Zack Speed. So ACR putting in a good showing here so far in this British Grand Prix, but we shall see. We'll go back up towards the pointy end of the field and see just what's going on between Sam, Geordie and Philip. The real battle pack at the moment as the battle behind them sort of diffused with that spin for Kieran Chadwick. Kean White's actually starting to catch up to this pack, so Kean White might be joining the party here for this British Grand Prix podium. 2nd, 3rd, 4th and potentially 5th battling all for position. It could be a fantastic spectacle as we see Carpenter without DRS, but the 2 cars behind him with DRS closing rapidly. The gap is now 6.5 tenths of a second as they head now into Luffield for the 8th time this race. Lap 8 of 36 of the British Grand Prix. Craig Baxter leads by 2.2 seconds out of the front for Defiance. You just be managing the gap, managing the fuel, managing the tyres, really doing what Craig Baxter does best, just winning with the most minimum amount of work possible.
So exactly what you're supposed to do in a Formula race.
Exactly. It's a typical Craig.
He's taking notes from Mario Andretti and all the greats. Just get yourself out in the lead, get there to the point to where the DRS does not activate for whoever is behind you, and hold it.
And that's hurting Sam. That's hurting Sam Carpenter as well. The fact that he doesn't have DRS, but his rivals behind him are able to close. Even though Sam may be good through the corners and gain a bit of time, it's all lost when they activate the DRS and they close up that gap massively. But Jacob Reed, Dominic Lambrix in the pits. I'm assuming retirement for both of them.
Yep.
We've got 16 cars left in the race. Noah Chiller, the last of the current runners, obviously after that massive spin on the opening lap, losing his front wing just after the pit lane entry, which cost him quite a bit of time as he had to go around the entire lap. But we can see Kean White starting to close up on this battle pack. Sam Carpenter with a very poor exit through the arena section could allow Geordie's Wise to potentially make a bold move into Brooklands. It would be a very audacious, but it would be absolutely fantastic if he went for a dive bomb move, but he's not going to be close enough to make a move this time. The gap is down to 0.3 of a second. It's halved in the lap. We've just seen Philip Krause, also a fantastic love field for him. He closes up as well on Sam Carpenter and Geordie's Wires. We've got blue versus green versus orange as they head now down towards Cops. Grand Prix. We're on board with Geordie's Wires, the VD Sport car, the temporary green car, heading now into Maggots and Beckett. Sam Carpenter ahead of him. Well, seems to be struggling soft tyres. Sam there with a bit of a forward slide in the early part of Maggots, and then even into Beckett as well. And Geordie almost runs wide, which could allow Philip Krause to close up as well as they both activate DRS onto the hangar straight. We can see Kean White also closing up behind him. Let's see, will Philip Krause be close enough to make a move?
Man, what a move.
Geordie positions his car beautifully and makes sure that Philip is not able to make a move. Sits in the middle of the road, but it's no chance for a manoeuvre there. You can just see that Geordie may now be starting to hold up Philip Krause. So maybe Geordie might think about letting Philip by to let him attack Sam Carpenter and then benefit off that as well. So we shall see what they'll do strategy-wise. But Chadwick ahead of Pszkowski and Rice. As actually, Kieran Chadwick comes into the pit lane. So the man in 2nd place in the championship comes and pits from 10th place in the race for KRT, the first man to pit for tyres in the race, who was running in the points. He's going to drop down a little bit, but we shall see what he does strategy-wise. Has done 10 laps on those soft tyres, obviously after a big spin as well. So a decent first stint there for Chadwick, but back up the front, 3rd place man, Geordie's Wise, holding on.
After that spin that Chadwick had, that's as far as he could go. I'm pretty sure his wheel was shaking in his hands. He may not be able to feel his fingers after that one. But honestly, watching Zwires, this whole Carpenter, Zwires, Krause thing, it kind of feels like I'm watching a dirt bike race. We got Yamaha, Kawasaki, and KTM. And oh, wait, no, this is Formula One. My bad.
Yes. 4 wheels, not 2.
4 wheels, right, yeah, and no jumps.
No jumps, no extreme jumps and wheelies, but actually, who knows what we might see a wheelie.
We may.
We may see a wheelie.
We just might.
Who knows what will happen? We may see a wheelie, but we're getting really excited because Geordie's Wires is closing up on Sam Carpenter. It's a horrendous part. I'm sorry, I'm very tired, but
World Cup fever has struck, Zach.
I'm broken. I've broken. 12 hours of Le Mans commentary. It's taking its toll. But Geordie's Wires closing up on Sam Carpenter on lap 11 of the Grand Prix. Scott Davidson pits in the Defiance car from what was 7th place, now demoting himself down position-wise. He's in 8th at the moment, but Puskowski parts him, and he's now down to 9th. So we'll see where he comes out in relation to Kieran Chapwick, if Kieran can pull off the undercut of dreams. We shall see. Geordie's Wires, though, the gap is 4.5 tenths of a second as they head down towards Brooklands. See if he's going to be close enough to make a move. No, not quite close enough. It seems as though the gap has sort of settled. We're hearing a battle for 9th place. Jukapeka Lalu and Nick Baraki could be battling for 9th place. We can see the Zesty Racing car, the first race for Nick Baraki in the Zesty Racing machine. He's currently sitting in 10th place, yet to pit, but he's attacking Jukapeka Lalu in the Visceral Sim Racing car. The Finn is under siege from the Welsh driver. See them making their way through Woodcote up the hill towards Cops. We shall see if they'll be close enough to make a move. Just doesn't seem as though that Bracky's close enough to make a move. Fantastic racing pedigree. Raced a lot of series. Oh, Lalu with an amateur mistake there. Running onto the grass on the exit of Cops. It's going to allow Bracky to close up a lot through these sweeping sections of the circuit. But we'll see just how much he's going to gain. We can see he activates DRS, heading down, the hanger straight.
We have some pit callers. Geordie's Wires in the pits. He grabs second place. And Carpenter, as well as Tino, is in the pits. So that's going to promote Kraus to second place. Kian White into third. And then, Evan Rice went into the pits as well. So Peshkovsky might benefit here. He will move into the top 4. And so the pit colors already happening at lap 11. Good call there, Zach.
I'm actually just seeing here, Geordie's Wires has jumped Sam Carpenter in the pit lane.
Yeah.
A fantastic pit stop there from Geordie's Wires. Now moves himself ahead of Sam Carpenter, and Jukapeka Lalu and Nick Bracky have put themselves in between the two of them as well. So Sam Carpenter, on, I believe, a set of medium tyres, has been demoted to 8th place and has got to get past these two cars who are battling ahead. Here we go. Nick Bracky's going to go around the outside into Brooklands. Will he be able to hold it? No, it just doesn't seem that the tyres have got the
cuts
line.
in.
But here we go, the cut back, he's going to go around the outside into Luffield. Sam Carpenter comes out of nowhere and is going to grab that position of him. So Nick Bracky, too focused on the car ahead, has unfortunately lost a position to Sam Carpenter, but could sit behind Sam here and allow him to attack Jukapeka Lalu. Is Sam going to go up on the inside into Cops? No, that would be a very, very silly manoeuvre for Sam Carpenter. But now he's going to sit behind his car into Maggots and Beckett's, and we see his Wires just jogging up the road, disappearing off into the distance. The longer Carpenter stays behind Lalu, the more time he's going to lose. And Bracky is also looking to get that position he's just lost back from Carpenter. They've both got DRS on Lalu. Here comes Carpenter. Will he go to the inside into Stowe? He's going to go down on the inside into Stowe with Carpenter. And is he going to be able to hold the move on the inside? It is looking like he's going to. Lalu diving into the pit lane.
Good move.
What was 8th place in the race. Bracky, though, holding on. See if Nick Bracky can pull the overcut on Lalu.
Might be able to, but Kian White and Philip Kraus. Kraus is already coming out of the pits now. They've been in there for a little bit. Comes right up on Geordie's Wires.
Kian White's going to come out ahead of his teammate as well. So Kian White, Sam Carpenter there with an absolute nightmare of a pit stop, has lost 3 places in the pit stop phases. So
but
I don't know what's happened there for Carpenter. Wires and Kraus side by side into Brooklands, and Kraus goes sweeping around the outside.
Thought there might be a second attack there, but Swires just let him go. It was a good move. He doesn't have the tire temperature that Kraus has. Kraus, I believe, is still... No, he's come into the pits.
Oh, big slow from Nalkarainen, in 8th place. Out of Luffield. It's going to allow Jeff Jacobs to close up and potentially make a move into Cops. Will he be close enough to make a move? No, but they're going to be separated by 0.2 of a second as they head through Cops. Nalkarainen with a far better Cops allows him to extend the gap a little bit. In comparison.
Leader in the pits.
Craig Baxter, the leader of the race, comes into the pit lane. David Puskowski under attack here from Philip Kraus on the inside into Stowe. Puskowski knows that there's not going to be any point in fighting that. Puskowski, I would imagine, potentially coming into the pit lane at the end of this lap. No, he continues on for another lap. And big lockup almost takes out Philip Kraus out of this race. We shall see where he will come at. Craig Baxter now leaving his box, coming into the end of the pit lane. Deactivates the pit lane limiter, and he's going to come out by some margin, is Baxter. And he's going to be
into the pits again.
Sam Carpenter may have sped in the pit lane, you would think. Let's see if he pulls into the box or if it's just a drive-through.
Looks like a drive-through.
So Sam Carpenter here jeopardizing his race massively with, it is a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So Sam Carpenter puts himself now comes out in what is 11th place in this race. So a mountain to climb for Carpenter.
Yeah, Carpenter's going to have to, he's going to have to go full bore the rest of this race. We're only 13 laps into this 36-lap race. So what, 23 laps to go, 22 laps to go? Man, that's a tough one. But I can tell you this, though. Kraus has closed up on Craig Baxter. Now, Baxter came out in the lead, but Kraus is now only 2 seconds behind him. And pretty much the rest of this race to make it happen. What happened?
Oh, geez. It was a very audacious move. I was hyping up a potential move somewhere between 2 drivers into Copse, and I finally got Keehan White barged up the inside of David Pskovski into Copse. I believe he's damaged Pskovski's car because it was incredibly aggressive from Keehan White. The Sabre driver sitting in 4th place puts himself up now ahead of Pskovski with what was, quite frankly, a very, very aggressive maneuver.
Yeah, that might, Keehan White needs to be careful right now.
Pskovski into the pit.
Kind of sitting on some thin ice. Pskovski was having a fantastic race. I believe he is already called to the pits already. No, he hasn't. This is the first time he's gone in. So, tire change there for David Pskovski, and we'll see where he ends up. Couple of notables, Kieran Chadwick sitting in 8th. He's going to be challenging Scott Davison here pretty soon, I believe, with his teammate behind him, Evan Rice. Might have some backup there. They need to start flying in formation or something to get around the venerable Sam Carpenter. Keehan White still sitting in 4th. Jordy Czar sitting in 3rd. He's trying to chase down Philip Kraus. Now, Kraus made that amazing pass on Jordy, but Jordy probably just needs to calm down, get himself back into the rhythm, and start catching up.
Yeah, it'll just be, at this point in the race, you're almost at half distance, but you've just got to make sure you can just keep yourself under control and sort of get yourself in a reasonable phase in which you're very consistent. Lap time's looking good, your tyres are looking good, and you can really start to just get yourself towards that end phase where you really, really get to push and you really, really get to be aggressive because you put in the work earlier in the race. But Craig Baxter leads ahead of Philip Kraus with Geordie Zwires sitting in 3rd place. VD looking for their first podium of the season. Zwires looking very good indeed. White sitting in 4th, potentially trying to get that podium off Zwires. We'll see Kenyon 2nd in qualifying, but 7th on the grid. Noel Korainen sitting in 5th place as Geordie Zwires comes to the pit lane. So maybe another drive-through penalty we could be seeing here. Let's see. Oh, he's coming into
tires.
He's coming into the box. So it might be a stop-go penalty potentially, but we shall see. We'll see if he doesn't seem to be being lifted up, so it looks as though it might be a stop-go penalty for Zwires. And it is. He gets released, I believe, after 10 or so seconds. So, unfortunately for Geordie Zwires, it is a penalty which is going to throw him out of contention for a podium, you would think. Promotes Keehan White, though, up to the podium positions. So, unfortunately, the drivers that we really thought were looking good in this race, unfortunately, having their races ruined by maybe track issues, but issues nonetheless, maybe self-inflicted. But Zwires comes out in 13th place, behind now Nick Brackey in the Zesty Racing car.
Jordy, he's kind of been all over the track a little bit. He's had a couple of off-track excursions. He must have made up time somewhere and so he's had to serve a bit of a penalty. I don't believe you get a stop-go for speeding in the pits, so that should be a drive-through. So yeah, he must be having some issues for sure as far as that
unless it was
goes.
a big speed. It might, if it was a big speed, they may have unfortunately been given a stop-go penalty.
Yes, I don't know. We can speculate on that all we want, but now Jordy is sitting in 13th place. He has a lot of room to make up. I've been keeping my eye on Keehan for a couple of laps now, and he's having a couple of issues in a few corners where he's just cutting in really early. I think he's trying to save his tires as much as he can, and with how aggressive he drives, it's kind of the only way to do it. We'll have to see what happens here, as I'm hearing through the grapevine that Kieran Chadwick is starting to get very close to Scott Davison. Scott,
he is indeed,
was up into the top 3, fighting for the, a solid position in the top 5. But Chadwick now pretty much on his gearbox. This could brew into something great, as behind him, Sam Carpenter and Evan Rice getting ready to tangle too. Sam making a move to the inside.
If you guys are going to go up on the inside, and the move's going to be made before Brooklyn, it's fairly straightforward for Carpenter. Moves himself now up into 7th place in the race, ahead of Evan Rice. But ahead, we can see that Evan Rice's teammate Kieran Chadwick is going at the Defiance car of Scott Davidson. Won't be close enough to make a move you wouldn't think into Cops, but definitely could close up through Maggots and Beckett's for a move into Stowe with the assistance of DRS on the Hangar Straight. We'll see though, he's going to be closing up with his Chadwick on the set of medium tyres, white striped medium tyres. You can see there, a bit of wild Maggots and Beckett's there for Scott Davidson. Kieran Chadwick with the DRS will be closing up. Unfortunately, Scott is without DRS, but Chadwick not close enough, you don't think, to make a move? No, not close enough to make a move into Stowe, but he's going to now just be patient and potentially make a move somewhere else on the lap and make just maybe even wait for a Scott Davidson mistake. They have been, Scott unfortunately, been prone to a couple of mistakes every now and then, but so is Kieran Chadwick. We saw a spin from him that dropped him out of what was a decent place in the race, and we shall see what Kieran can do here, but he might make a diving move. No, won't be close enough, but a lock up there. Big lock up from Scott Davidson as they head into the arena section. We're talking about Scott being slow, but they're both catching Tino Melkorainen big time. As we can see, a big slide there from Scott Davidson through the loop section with DRS. Here comes Kieran Chadwick. He's going to go up on the inside into Brooklyn. Davidson, though, going to try and hold it around the outside. He's going to still be there. Fantastic, fantastic racing between the two of them. Chadwick, they're going to have to go the long way around through Luffield. Scott Davidson with a slide there on exit through Luffield. They're still going to be side by side now as they head up towards Cops. Boy. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to go side by side into Cops. Kieran Chadwick's going to try and hold it around the outside, is Chadwick, and he's going to make the move stick. Here comes Carpenter, though. They're going to make it 3 wide into Maggots and Beckett's. No, that would be very silly. Here comes Scott Davidson, though. Whoa. Davidson, though, is going to have to cut across the circuit. Davidson losing 2 places in the space of 2 corners. Kieran Chadwick up into 5th place. Sam Carpenter now in 6th, but here comes Sam Carpenter on Kieran Chadwick onto the Hangar Straight. There's going to be close racing between the two of them. Sam's going to try and go round the outside into Stowe, the king of the late breakers. Who's going to win? Carpenter's going to try and hold it around the outside, and now he's going to be on the inside as they head into Vale. Chadwick, though, demoted down to 6th place. Unfortunately, he gained a place, he's lost a place, and he hasn't moved from what he was a lap ago. Fantastic racing between the 3 of them. Carpenter came out of nowhere with that amount of pace. Obviously, the fresher tyres is really, really starting to work its magic here on lap 19 of the Grand Prix.
Loads of trust between Chadwick and Carpenter all around. Scott Davidson got a bit pushed out there coming into Maggots and did have to concede the position and live to fight another day. He had to cut the track, and of course, in those situations, you got to back off a little bit, let the cars pass you a touch, and just to make sure, you know, it's polite racing, and it's something that we promote here at AOR. Doing a fantastic job are these 3.
It's tough racing, but it's fair racing,
yes.
As Fernando Alonso's engineer said when he was battling Hamilton. It was very reminiscent of that battle. It was just really, really hard-line racing, and it's continuing. We can see Kieran Chadwick is still very, very close to Sam Carpenter, and I believe has been gaining over the course of this lap, and as well as the KRT of Kieran Chadwick, the KRT of Evan Rice has been catching Scott Davidson quite quickly as well. So KRT putting an assault here on the drivers around them here on lap 20 as Craig Baxter starts of the British Grand Prix. Not close enough to make a move this time into Stowe is Chadwick, but
KRT is looking to make up a lot of points in the team championship. They need to keep their noses clean, as a good finish from both of them will definitely close up onto the leader. They might be able to take over from Defiance in the team championship, but really, Kieran needs a very strong finish here. A top 5 would do him well, just to keep him in the hunt for second, or for the lead of the whole championship. It's gonna kind of come down to Scott Davidson, really. If he can keep his nose clean, as he is the other Defiance car, this is going to be a close battle in the team championship at least. But it's, man, Kieran's going to have to definitely get around Sam and possibly take on Tino in the ACR car. And Tino has been kind of just keeping the gap and doing what he can to save as much fuel as he can for the end of the race as well, sitting 4th.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that we're sort of looking at this battle, but we can't forget the fact that Kenyon White, the other Sabre car, currently sitting in third place. We're scoring a bag of points for Sabre in comparison to KRT. So you'd imagine that at the moment, Sabre would pass KRT for second place in the Constructors' Championship, and Defiance would be extending their margin, obviously, with Craig Baxter at the moment bagging 25 points in comparison to Sabre's be about 25 as well. So no gain on Defiance, but a gain on KRT big time.
We should also mention the Zesty Racing cars, as Philip Kraus sitting in second place fairly solidly too. He's got a 3-second lead on Kenyon, so decent showing there, of course. And Nick Brackey, the newcomer, in 10th place. He is actually being challenged by Jordy's Wires right now, but is holding his own and trying to catch David Peshkovsky at the same time.
Yeah, obviously Jordy's Wires with a lot of pace, battling for the podium a few laps ago before he had to serve that penalty, which demoted him now down to 11th place in the race. We'll see if he can go to the end on those medium tyres, but he's looking very, very racy in comparison to Nick Brackey. Brackey just learning the ropes of the car. This is only his second actual race he's competed in the car. Race as reserve last time out in Austria. Scored a couple of points as well then, but you can see Jordy's Wires with DRS. Will he make a move into Brooklyn? He's going to go down on the inside. Is Wires. He's going to go. Now it's going to be the outside though for Brackey. Will he be able to hold it? No, it just doesn't seem as though he's got the grip. So Zwires up into 10th place for VD. Brackey demoted down to 11th, but we'll go back up towards the front and see what the battle is looking like. The front, we see Sam Carpenter challenging Tino Nelkarainen for 4th place in this race. Carpenter's going to have DRS, so will Chadwick. Unfortunately for Nelkarainen, there is no DRS for him. Carpenter closing ever so much as they head towards Stone. Not close enough, though, to make a move this time round on lap 22 of the Grand Prix of 36. We'll see if he can be close enough to make a dive bomb movement of Vale. No, but he's going to close up ever so much, though. Will there be a chance? The Leo Fox, Sam Carpenter. See if he's going to be close enough to make a move into Abbey. Not close enough, but what about a potential dive bomb move? We're just waiting for Sam Carpenter to make a move because it looks like it's going to happen at any point. He is looking very, very racy in comparison to the ACR Zack speed car ahead of him, sitting in 4th place at the moment as they activate DRS, heading on to the Brooklyn Straight, heading down towards Brooklyn. Carpenter pulls to the inside. Will the move be as straightforward as it seems? Yes, it is. Carpenter moves up into 4th place in the race after a drive-through penalty a few laps ago. So Carpenter up to 4th. Nelkarainen down to 5th. Chadwick looking aggressive and racy in 6th. Could potentially move himself up into the top 5 as well.
I'm watching Kieran right now. If we can go on board with him, you can see how close this is. He's trying to just pace Nakarainen right now. And Tino looks like he has a better car through the corners, but he's got to nail those exits or else he will be passed up by Chadwick. As, I mean, look at Nakarainen. He's able to weave his way through Beck is so much easier than Chadwick, and that might be from the watch. It's hard to tell, but starting already a gap. Chadwick looking on the inside. No, he's not going to go, but oh no, Nakarainen runs wide through Stowe. Manages to gather it back up as they head into the final complex.
The DRS there for Nelkarainen that he got from Sam Carpenter really helped him to defend that position against Kieran Chadwick. I believe Nelkarainen's on the, as Evan Rice comes to the pit lane, I believe Nelkarainen's sitting on the hard compound tyres, the blue mark compound hards, in comparison to Chadwick's mediums, the white striped medium tyres. So bit of a pace difference there, obviously in favouring the KRT, sitting in 6th place at the moment. But Nelkarainen able to go longer in comparison to these two that are sitting around him. I believe Nelkarainen might be the only driver sitting with the hard tyres at the moment that is still in the race. Oh, sorry, Noah Chilla is, as well as Yilatalo. Yeah, he's the only one. Oh, Peshkovsky is as well. My apologies. So you can see Chadwick very, very close there to Nelkarainen. Be close enough to make a move, maybe onto the hanger straight. He's indicating he wants to get past. He's done that a couple of times so far in this race for Kieran Chadwick. He's looked to the inside to sort of signal, hello, I'm there. I'm ready to make a move. Can you get out the way? As they head into Maggots. into Beckett. Will Chadwick be able to maximise his exit and close up to Nelkarainen? He goes all the way almost onto the grass.
Oh, wow.
And Nelkarainen, that looked as though he was going to let him pass there. It was looking fairly straightforward. Here we go into Stowe. Chadwick, though, not close enough to make a move this time round. It was looking fairly suspicious. From Nelkarainen, as Kieran Chadwick dives into the pit lane. He's had enough of following the ACR Zack speed car. It's fairly close on pit lane entry there for Kieran Chadwick. It might be close, empty, but we shall see.
Now Tino, on the hards, we were wondering how long the mediums were going to last, and I think we just had our answer.
I wasn't expecting him to pit, because Craig Bax was saying a soft medium strategy would get you to the end.
It would get you to the end, yeah, but do you feel racy? Are you comfortable with the car? Can you finish? That's the question. And obviously, they didn't feel like it. But Nakarainen is on the hards, so I'm not exactly sure how his tire degradation is going, but it looks like he's able to save the tires much easier than, say, a Scott Davison or even a Sam Carpenter. So he might just be playing the waiting game a little bit. And that previous lap sort of breakaway coming out of Chapel, obviously that one right there was to break the... What in the world? Oh, that was weird. My game just freaked out. You want to break the arrow a little bit. Try to make sure that the person behind you can't get the draft and the pull out of Chapel, and it was just enough to make sure that Tino stayed in 5th place. But now Scott Davison is catching him extremely quickly.
Yeah, we'll see if Davison's going to be close enough to make a move. He's getting very close there through Stowe, but overcooks it slightly, running slightly wide through the early part of the corner. There's a car ahead. Sam Carpenter, 4th place, into the pit lane. So this will promote the two drivers currently battling for what was 5th place up to 4th and 5th respectively. So the battle becomes, instead of the battle for 5th, it becomes a battle for 4th. Nelkarainen leading this little 2-car train. Big lock up there from Davison into the arena section. But he's closing up massively on Nelkarainen, but this will be a good exit from Nelkarainen. The line was completely different from when comparing the two drivers, but DRS has been activated, I would imagine, for Scott Davison as they head down towards the Brooklands corner, past the BRDC club on the outside of the corner, inside of the circuit.
Oh, big. That was a big slide there by Nakarainen. He did not get a good exit coming out of club through Abbey. I have a feeling Scott Davison might make a run on him going into Maggots. Possible. No, maybe not. Scott Davison's still way back.
Carpenter comes out ahead of Chadwick, but behind Bracky and Zwires. So Jody Zwires obviously yet to make a second pit stop in this race.
Kraus and Kenyon are in the pits.
So synchronized pitting there for the two cars as Yilatalo, Jacobs, and Hudding come into the pit lane. We'll see if Scott Davison comes to the pit lane though on this lap, and he is going to as well. So Tino Nelkarainen going to the end of the race, you would assume. Scott Davison then being very, very cautious on pit lane entries. The the 2nd and 3rd place cars emerge. They will come out ahead of Nelkarainen, so he'll be staying in 4th place as Boskovsky will come past, as well as Zwires and you'd imagine Bracky. Sam Carpenter looking to make a move on near Bracky as Chadwick is also there, so there's big slide there from Scott Davison on it. Pit lane entry almost went into the wall.
Oh, Bracky!
As we're going to have, Scott Davison coming in 12th place behind Evan Rice.
And we're starting to see cars on softs now.
Kieran Chadwick, though, looking very aggressive, very racy on Nick Bracky, who is on a different tyre strategy to the rest of the field. Down on the inside into Brooklands goes Kieran Chadwick, up now into 8th place in this race. Drivers obviously yet to pit, but it's looking like we're going to have the battles that are going to take us to the end of the race forming. Chadwick versus Carpenter seems to be the main event, as Craig Baxter
is in the pits.
Comes in the pit lane. The leader of the race, lap 27 of the Grand Prix.
So it looks like his tire strategy is not playing out the way that he thought it was. It will be a 2-stop race. We knew that this track was going to be harsh on tires, and sure enough, it has been. As Craig Baxter made the prediction earlier, with a soft medium setup, and those mediums just did not last to the end of the race. Already, it's still 10 laps left in this one, which is perfect for the softs. Softs lasting 11 laps with optimal, obviously, making sure that they're good to go for the rest of the race. These races that are brewing now, that's gonna be a tough call here as Nick Brackey comes into the pits as well. Looks like he'll be taking on some softs.
Yeah, blasting his way to the end. You would think Tino Nälkäräinen, sitting in 4th place at the moment. He's going to be hunted, you would assume, by the drivers behind him. Pszczkowski as well is probably going to the end on those hard tyres. Wires lives on a set of mediums, so he'll have to pull out a gargantuan effort to get himself to the end of the race, you would imagine, for Zwires. But Carpenter, Chadwick, Davison, Rice, the drivers that you'd think would be starting to attack and maybe be able to go after Nälkäräinen for 4th place at the end of the race. But we shall see what the Visceral Sim Racing car of Jukka-Pekka Laulu is sitting on tyre-wise. A set of mediums has pit only once so far in this race, so he's varying in terms of strategy. So we can see Nälkäräinen a few seconds behind, about 9.5 seconds behind Kenyon White. Kenyon White, they're on a set of soft tyres. Craig Baxter is on the same as well.
Davison is starting to challenge Laulu for 9th place. Davison is on the mediums, and he has
DRS activated.
The hanger straight. Coming into Stowe, Davison has the proper position. He will take it. Laulu is kind of just letting him go. He knows that Davison is much, much faster than him at this point. So good idea. Don't fight it. Just make sure you get to the end of the race and try to get a couple of points.
The interesting one that I will be seeing there is, will the drivers be able to get past David Pszczkowski cleanly? Obviously, I believe he served a race ban. He's sitting on a incredibly thin ice, as we can see. Ruben van den Hutting trying to unlap himself on Tino Nälkäräinen, who Nälkäräinen sitting in 4th place. It'll be interesting to see if Pszczkowski will give a clean fight. Obviously, we saw the move between White and Pszczkowski into comps, which turned out to be a bit ugly, a bit argy-bargy, but I would imagine that Pszczkowski, obviously a lot slower than the drivers that are coming by because of tyres and setup and pace in general, they will be coming past, and it'll be fairly crucial if the minimum amount of time that they lose behind Pszczkowski, it will put them in a very good place to potentially go a lot better in this race. But I believe we've lost Ilatalo, Jacob, Reed, and Lambrix from this race as well.
Yeah, Lambrix had that big spin. Reed not having a good race at all. He was having problems. Jacobs, I believe, spun. No, he blew his engine. That's the one thing here that you have to watch out for, and it does take some practice. Is those downshifts from that high end top speed down into 3rd, 4th gear. Gotta watch those downshifts, and Jacobs, that's the one that bit him, and Ilatalo, not exactly sure what happened to him. Don't think he disconnected. I know that he was having a rough race as well, so I don't know. This race is panning out to be a heck of a just a heck of a battle. I mean, tire war coming out, just joggling for positions. Drivers that we thought were going to be fast as heck ending up, in the lower top 10. Speaking to you, Jordy Zwires, is Chadwick is actually challenging Zwires here for 7th place. Chadwick a little bit squirrely right now, but Zwires holding his line. Oh, a big spin there, or a tire spin there. Burning out, coming on to the old front stretch. Chadwick looking to the inside. Doing that fill in the mirrors thing that he's been doing all race. It's so sneaky by Chadwick to get in the head of Jordy Zwires.
It's incredibly close between the two of them. We actually saw Sam Carpenter overtake Zwires into Stowe the lap before. Yeah. So obviously Zwires on a set of old medium tyres, starting to struggle. Carpenter though hunting Pszczkowski ahead. We can see though Chadwick is closing out massively on Zwires. He's going to go down on the inside into Stowe. Is Zwires going to hold his own? No, he thinks better of it. He knows that his race is run. This is varying strategies galore for poor Jordy Zwires. He'll be just looking to potentially get home for a couple of points. Evan Riso sitting in 11th place at the moment. We shall see. He was in a battle, and he is, with Jukka-Pekka Laulu at the moment. for the final points-paying position in this race. Lap 30 of the Grand Prix. They're about to start. Craig Baxter is a little bit ahead of these two drivers. They head now into Abbey. Go on board with the American, Evan Rice, sitting in 11th place at the moment, hunting down the Vessel Sim racing car of Jukka-Pekka Laulu. We see if Evan will be able to close up and pass the car ahead here.
Lalu got a heck of a run coming out of the arena section and through down to Brooklands. Lalu doesn't have the top speed, it seems, just overall, but Rice attempting a little bit of a late braking procedure, got a little bit ahead of himself. Should have a decent exit coming out of here, though. The wood pit. He might make a run.
With a good exit, he should be able to pull himself ahead of the cars. Sam Carpenter has now jumped David Puskovsky, is up into 5th place, so his next target up ahead of him is Tino Nelkoronen. It was a big slide there for Jukka-Pekka Laulu, so this could allow Evan Rice to close up massively. DRS activated for the American in the KRT. He's going to pull to the outside here for Stowe. He's going to go sweep it around the outside into Stowe. Very, very close there for Evan Rice, but keeps his composure, keeps his cool, and keeps the position up into 10th place now for Evan Rice, the final point-paying position. And he'll be now looking to gap the Vissel Sim Racing car behind.
Lalu got up on the curb a little bit too through the arena, the club section of the track, and he's gonna have to clean up some of these corners a little bit. He is braking very late though, is Lalu. That's where he's catching Rice right now, and we'll see what happens with DRS as they move on to the Brooklands straight. Catching him, Rice that's to hold his line. Lalu to the inside, a little bit of a fake there. Lalu's now way off the optimal line. A hit. Rice wasn't expecting Lalu to be there, I don't think, but it looks like very minimal damage as Lalu swings way wide. Rice will come out of that battle ahead for now, but Lalu will be looking for those points.
It's incredibly close between the two of them. Lalu hungry for some points, but we can see Carpenter is very, very close there, gaining on Tino Nelkoronen. The gap is 1.7 seconds as they head on to...
Oh, Chadwick on Puskovsky.
Oh, up on the inside into Stowe, and they've interlocked there. rFactor 2 providing the goods, and unfortunately for Puskovsky, he's lost out. Geordie Swise getting wayward there with Scott Davidson. Davidson's going to try and go around the outside. No, he's going to do the crisscross. Will he be able to get the move through club? No. And he's going to go massively wide off the circuit. And it's weaving all over the circuit there for Puskovsky and for Chadwick. They're going absolutely bonkers. The car's ahead, but we'll see if Davidson's going to go down on the inside into the arena section. There's contact between the two of them. Davidson's drowned. And I think that was a bit audacious there from Scott Davidson. And unfortunately, it has not paid off. But he'll...
5 laps left in this race?
Yeah, he might be able to close back up. So, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, but Evan Rice is starting to close up.
That was a tough run there by Scott Davison, as Evan Rice again still ahead of Lalu, and you know Lalu's a little bit fired up. He gets slightly tilted when it comes to races like this where there is some contact and things like that, and it has been a rough last couple laps, kind of all around the field.
Yeah, if he's involved in another incident, he might be tilted a full 90 degrees. He'll be going absolutely ballistic, but Kieran Chadwick is very, very close to... Oh, he's lapping. He's lapping Ruben van den Hutting. Ruben getting in the way, getting us very excited there, but he manages to get out of the way, and Kieran Chadwick laps him comfortably, heading into Stowe. Craig Baxter on the 33rd lap of this Grand Prix. We see VD lapping VD. Ruben getting out of the way for his teammate. His teammate, though, will be saying to hunt Dave Puskovsky ahead. So Geordie Swise only pitted twice for pitted twice in this race, once for tyres and once for a drive-through stop-go penalty. My apologies. So Geordie, very, very old mediums on that VD car at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how they go in comparison to the slightly less worn hard tyres that Puskovsky is currently got on the car. So we can see Carpenter has moved ahead of Tino Nelkoronen. Carpenter now up into 4th place, so it's a Sabre 3-4 at the moment. It's on lap 33 of the Grand Prix. Carpenter, though, you wouldn't imagine would be able to close. He's 20 seconds behind his teammate. Wouldn't be able to close, you wouldn't think, for the final podium position. But stranger things have happened.
We'll have to see, though. I mean, Proust is looking pretty strong in 2nd place. He's got a decent gap on Kenyon for the podium. Both of those guys are on mediums, so the double stop strategy coming into play for them. Sam Carpenter sitting 4th. He's got Tino behind him. That could be a race here towards the end of the race. Chadwick, decent gap on Pashkovsky, as pretty just a touch spread out. I mean, really, it's coming down to 4th place here for Sam Carpenter. He just needs to defend against Nakarainen. I don't know. Sam's looking pretty racy, but Tino's looking for one of his best finishes this whole season.
It's a big compound difference. A fresh set of softs versus a warm set of hards. It's going to be advantage Carpenter unless he makes a serious mistake, or if Nelkarainen's got a serious pace advantage over Carpenter naturally. But he does have DRS, which does allow him to artificially close back up to the car ahead. But we shall see if he's going to be close enough to potentially make a move.
Tino has been passed, has made passes, and it's really come down to his pit strategy. He is still on those hards. Yeah, he's on hards. He's been on hards since his first stop. So one of the only drivers here to be able to finish out the race with a one-stopper. And it's really helped him out a ton, as he is looking at a top 5. Very well done by him. He does have a 2nd place to his credit. And anytime that he's actually finished the race or started a race, he's been in the top 10, which is only 3 so far. But still, got to build on something. So Tino looking really strong here at Silverstone. So we are heading into the final moments of this race. Craig Baxter's still way out in the lead.
Yeah, it's 6.7 seconds. We haven't really spoken about Craig. He's sort of had a race where if you disappear like he has, you know you're doing very, very well. He's led every single lap of the Grand Prix. He's got pole position. I believe that he'll have the fastest lap, so he'll be going for a Grand Chem, I think it's called, where you win every session, every qualifying session, every get pole, get the race win, lead every lap, fastest lap, and he looks as though he's going to do that. He's on the penultimate lap of the race. He is 7 seconds ahead of Philip Kraus, who's 3.8 seconds ahead of Kean White. 20 seconds though further back. Sam Carpenter battling still with Tino Nelkarainen. 7/10 of a second between the two of them. Kieran Chadwick, bit of no man's land for him, sitting in 6th place. A good race from him. Obviously a difficult one with that spin early on in the race when battling the drivers into Stowe.
We have to talk about Jordy Dwyer's battling for the lead, battling for 2nd place, and then he had that 10-second stop and hold in the pits.
It would explain why he came out so much further ahead of Sam Carpenter and the other drivers around him. It seemed too good to be true, I think, for him. But Craig Baxter has started the final lap. He's going down toward Brooklands for the final time.
So clean. Just kept his nose clean. Got his way around a couple lapped cars. Noah Chill and Ruben Vandenhutting ended up a lap down. And at this point, it is smooth sailing for Craig Baxter, your championship leader. He will be extending that one as Chadwick looking like about 6th place, maybe a 5th, depending on how it goes between him and Tino. And even Sam Carpenter, who's finishing, looks like he's going to finish 4th. Going to make up some points on Kieran. I'll have to do the final tally to see how that works out there as the race ends.
Yes, Craig Baxter heading now into Stowe for the final time. It's been a fantastic race for him. It's an absolute dominant performance for Craig Baxter. It'll be another win to add to his collection, alongside another pole to add to his collection so far in this season. It's looking very good for Craig Baxter. He comes around the final corner. It's the win for Craig Baxter here at the British Grand Prix. A fantastic, fantastic race from him, and 25 points to take away. But it's going to be Philip Kraus who comes home for second place ahead of Kenyon White, who's going to be getting his first podium of the season for Sabre Racing. Fourth place, his teammate is coming through the final couple of corners. Nelka is close, but might not be close enough to make a move.
Not close enough at all, yeah.
Looks
Sam got
as though.
around Tino.
So Sam Carpenter coming through now for fourth place ahead of Tino Nelka, who comes home for fifth. Kieran Chadwick comes home for sixth place ahead of David Puskovsky, who's going to come home for seventh place. A good race for Wolf Racing. Geordie Zwires come home for eighth place ahead of Scott Davison in ninth. And it'll be Evan Rice who will get the final point ahead of Jukapeka Lalo, who unfortunately comes through for 11th. Nick Brackey comes through for 12th, and it'll be Noah Chiller already back in the box. Ruben van den Hudding in 14th place.
That middle of this race was possibly some of the closest racing that we have seen all season. Battling for the top 3, battling in the top 5, and even battling back down into the later stages of the top 10. Close racing, couple of instances there where, there was a little bit of contact, but some of that, I think, really is just kind of the hitbox, taking a couple of people by surprise. As Craig Baxter's still racing with Kraus. I don't know if they know it's the end of the race. What are you guys doing?
I think they'll be lining up for their traditional...
The traditional burnouts?
Traditional classy photo. The top 3 drivers are lining up. So Craig Baxter ahead of Philip Kraus, ahead of Kenyon White, his first podium of the season.
Yeah.
We're going to have a short break now, and we'll come back with the top 3 interviews from the top 3 drivers. So we're back here for the top 3 interviews from the drivers who finished the top 3 places. The podium from the British Grand Prix. We're going to see if we can grab Kenyon White, the 3rd place getter for Sabre Racing first. See if he's ready for an interview. Have a chat about a fantastic podium. His first podium of the season, as we were saying. We'll grab him now. Kian, are you here?
Yes.
Well, Kian, a fantastic result for you. Your first podium of the season. Your first podium for Sabre. How does it feel to finally get a fantastic result and to finish well ahead of your teammate?
Well ahead, 1 position, but yeah.
Well, in time-wise, it was 20 or so seconds.
Well, I mean, what?
What?
I've got like 3 4th places, so it's bound to come. If Sam was gonna have like bad luck, or Sam or Kieran, you're usually in 3rd.
And obviously, you qualified 2nd on the grid, but then you ended up having that 5th-place grid penalty. Was it at all nerve-wracking getting through those cars that were ahead of you? In terms of obviously you were in 2nd, you were in 2nd, but then you were down to 7th. Was it nerve-wracking getting through those cars, knowing that you had the pace over them?
It wasn't that bad. I'd say the scariest probably Scott, because he was like side by side to the final corners, and yeah, we both nearly died, but it's fun.
And obviously, you had that very aggressive move with David Paszkowski up on the inside into Cops.
Yeah, I thought he'd seen me. I thought he'd seen me because he I don't know. Well, I think I was entitled to the space because I was like 3 seconds a lap faster than him. Fucking or shit. And he just didn't. He just turned in on me, in my opinion.
And
obviously, I haven't watched it back, so.
Obviously, we head now to the next race, round number 10 of the season. Going to check where it is. I believe it is the Korean Grand Prix. I have a feeling. It is the Korean Grand Prix. Have you ever driven that track on rFactor 2?
No, I've driven it on F1 2013 about 3 times.
Okay. Yep. How do you feel heading towards that race?
I was confident as, not confident.
No,
I've never driven the track, so it's gonna be a rough one, I think.
So lots of practice coming up here for you then, huh? I mean, you have to be confident after that top 3. We commentators always rag on you about your steering inputs and blah blah blah, just like everybody else does. But you proved yourself this time.
Do you? I never noticed.
Oh yeah, no, we do. We rag on you all the time.
That's great. That's great.
Well done. Well done on a fantastic 3rd place. We'll see you in Korea.
Yeah. Good luck to you too.
There we go. Kenyon White, 3rd place getter. We can see if we can grab Philip Kraus. He's 2nd place getter.
Surprised that he made it to the podium.
I think so. Yes, it was obviously he lucked out there with Wires and Carpenter receiving penalties for some sort of misdemeanors, but he earned it there with the pace. But we've got Philip Kraus, the 2nd place getter for Zesty Racing. Philip, are you here?
Hello there.
Hello. Well, another podium to add to your collection so far this season. How'd you feel fending off? Well, it wasn't really an immediate threat from Kian, but it was sort of a constant, I guess, threat in the fact that he was a few seconds behind for pretty much the entirety of that second half of the race.
It was probably one of the most boring races of my life, if I'm honest.
I
didn't really feel any pressure. I was just chilling the whole race. Couldn't catch Craig because of a half spin on a curb, and Kian wasn't quick enough to catch me, I guess. It's whatever.
And in terms of fuel, was it tight, or because you were cruising so much, were you easily going to get to the end?
I had over 2 laps left.
Oh, well, there you go.
Wow.
And it easily gets to the end. Well, we were talking to Keen. Obviously, we go to Korea for the 10th round of the championship. Have you ever driven Korea on rFactor 2?
Nope.
No? Have you ever driven Korea at all?
Nope.
Oh, so it'll be a fresh track to learn. Obviously, a Grand Prix circuit that Formula One has visited a few times, but so you don't have any idea of how you may go there.
I mean, I hear KRT is going to be pretty strong there, but other than that, I got nothing.
Ah, yes, KRT with the home race advantage. But We shall see. Well, congratulations on another second place. We shall see you in Korea.
Okie doke.
There we go. Philip Kraus, second place getter. We're going to see if we can talk to the race winner, Craig Baxter. Number 9 for Defiance, extending his championship lead by another. And here he is. Craig, you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Well, another win to add to your collection, another pole to add to your collection, and I'm pretty sure you led every single lap along the way as well. How'd you feel with that race?
Went how I expected, to be honest. Many people didn't really do much practice during the week, and normally when that happens, I can get up to speed much faster than most people. So I think Keane probably put in the most laps in practice for Phil, but as soon as Phil qualified down the order, messed up his qualifying, and then Keane had a 5th-place grid, as long as lap 1, kind of turn 1, or turn 3 even, went clean, then I didn't expect to lose the lead, really.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the tyre strategy, were you surprised it was a 2-stop in the end, or was it sort of putting the softer tyres on the end was sort of the way to go?
I could have 1-stopped on the hards. I could have went and I could have done that. I don't know if it would have been quicker, but I would have rather have just put on the soft tyres. Everyone else was struggling with tyres in a bit, so I guess I just did that because I would prefer to be on the softer tyre and actually be going fast and not have to worry about tyres dying towards the end of the race. And you can make a mistake when that happens. So.
Yep, and obviously you extend your championship lead. Kieran Chadwick finishing down the order after a massive spin at the exit of Stowe. You head to Korea. The 10th round of the championship was asking Philip and Keane if they've ever driven Korea and if they've ever driven it on rFactor 2, and neither of them have driven it on rFactor 2, and only Keane's done a couple of laps on F1 2013. How do you feel heading towards Korea?
Similar in a sense in terms of the high-speed corners to Silverstone. So setup-wise, it won't be massively different. Obviously, you've got long straights, so maybe a bit better top speed in terms of that. But I've drove it before in F1 2013, done league races on it before. It's pretty nice track to drive, although might be a bit difficult to overtake as well in the middle sector and the last sector. But if any moves are going to be made, it's obviously going to be on that long straight in the first sector.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel as though there might be a bit of a, not home ground advantage, but a bit of an experience advantage with the fact that people that have driven the Korea circuit before in some capacity may have sort of, I guess, an advantage if people aren't practicing as much? Obviously, getting towards the end of the season, people are getting a bit tired, but people who have driven the circuit before have some knowledge of the track layout. For instance, Philip's never driven it before. He has no idea, I don't think, even what the track layout is. So do you think there'll be a bit of an advantage there for people who have driven the circuit before?
It depends how accurate it is, I guess. Well, it depends how close it is to the F1 2013 version, because that's the only game I've drove it on that I remember. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think it's worth as much, really, at all. Obviously, if Philip doesn't know the track, where the track goes, then, yeah, it's going to be worth a little bit, but everyone should probably get up to speed relatively easy. As I said, setup-wise, it's going to be similar to Silverstone, so I don't see many issues. I don't see there being a massive surprise somewhere or other. I just roughly kind of relatively the same kind of order I expect.
Well, congratulations on another win, another pole, and extending your championship lead. We'll see you in a week's time in Korea. There we go. So that'll pretty much do it for us here for round number 9 of the championship here at this British Grand Prix. Curtis, any closing comments?
Well done by all the drivers. There was a couple of instances that we saw. Don't think there was too much really as far as bad driving or anything like that happening at Silverstone, the home of Grand Prix racing, of course. This next race, though, just based off of talking to those guys right now, it's going to be interesting, I think is the word I'm looking for.
Because I think interesting is probably an apt word to be using. It's a new circuit that many drivers have.
Yeah.
The last time the Formula One race there was 2013, and yeah, F1 2013 sort of an arcade game in comparison to rFactor 2. So
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see how the drivers will react driving that circuit. Obviously, tyre compounds as well, since Formula One don't visit the circuit real life at the moment. Tyre compounds will have to be determined off a bit of testing. So we'll see how the tyres go. If maybe if AOR, if the admins decide to go more soft and more aggressive to allow for a lot more pit stops and a lot more, I guess, overtaking, aggressive driving, or if they go a bit more conservative, like what we saw today with the soft, the medium, and the hards. If they want to go a bit harder and allow for maybe 1 or 2 stops at most for the racing. But I guess we'll see in a week's time.
We shall see in a week's time. Thank you all for coming on out. It's been a pleasure broadcasting this race for you, as always, here at AOR. Thank you to Hype Energy, and of course, thank you to Elgato Gaming for the massive support that you guys give us. It's been one heck of a ride here at Silverstone. For